Okay, last day we have completed under the biological tools the enzymes completely, and many things we have seen them. We will go to that slide now fast. Now, straight we're going to that slide. Okay. Now, look at here. These are the points we have seen. Basically, three main tools in biological under biological tools. First one is enzymes, and second one is that the vectors, and third one the target DNA. And after that, we have seen that enzymes are of various types. There are restriction endonuclease enzymes, which is used to cut the DNA, that is acting as biological scissor or molecular scissor. And then we have seen that digases enzyme is there, that is used as a joining enzyme. Reverse transcriptase enzyme helping there in reverse transcription. And then we have seen that DNA polymerase enzyme. And after this, we have seen that there are vectors, basically four types of vectors: plasmids, bacteriophages, and plant or animal viruses, and even artificial DNA. Then we have seen that enzymes, basically enzymes are used for cutting the DNA into fragments, and mostly restriction enzymes we are talking about. And these enzymes are basically called as nucleases enzyme, because this nucleases enzyme is used to cut the phosphodiester bond between the nucleotides. And this enzyme, we have seen that there are two types. One is called exonucleases enzyme, that is cutting the DNA from one end. And another type, we have seen that endonucleases enzyme, that can cut the DNA at certain specific sites or specific positions within the DNA. And after that, we have seen that the restriction endonuclease enzymes cutting the DNA at predetermined sites. And these enzymes, basically three types are there. That is type 1, type 2, and type 3. Then we have seen that the type 2 enzyme there in detail. In type 2 enzyme, we have seen this is the enzyme which we use mostly there in rDNA technology, because this enzyme, you can say that is capable to identify the specific sequence of those 4 to 8 nitrogen bases, and then they can cut the DNA. They can identify and they can cut the DNA in vitro. Okay, these are the points we have seen. And after that, we have seen that there are different types of such enzymes. Okay, in your book, maybe thousands written there, but in our older syllabus, it was written there as 350 types, type 2. Okay, then we have seen that the nomenclature of the enzymes, this is not given in your book. And under nomenclature, we have seen that various enzymes are there, and each enzyme is having a name, a scientific name is there. One or two examples we have seen. EcoR1 we have seen as an example. Under that, you see different letters are there, that is having different meaning. And we have seen that the first letter, capital E, that represents the generic name. Then we have seen two small letters, that is CO over here, and that represents the species name. Then the third capital letter, that represents the strain, and last is the Roman letter, and that is the order of discovery. And EcoR1 represents what? That also we have seen. E represents Escherichia, and CO represents coli, R represents RY13 strain, and the number 1 represents the first in order. Then another example we have seen, hint 3. That is the H we have seen, that is Haemophilus. and IN represents influencing, D represents strain, and number 3 represents the order number 3. And after that, we have seen what is the meaning of recognition sequences. And we have seen that where the DNA can be cut by using the restriction endonuclease enzyme. That is what is called the recognition site or the restriction site. And this restriction site, we have seen that there is having a specific nature. What is that specific nature? We have seen the first half and the second half, we can say they are the mirror image of the remaining half. Any half, first half if you take, that is a mirror image of the second half. If you look at the second half, that is the mirror image of the first half. And when the nitrogen bases have been arranged in such a way, we call this as palindromes. In palindromes, you can see that the sequences, if you read from left to right, or from right to left, or from 5' to 3' direction, or 3' to 5' direction, you can see that the word which is formed, that will be exactly same. That means such terms we say palindromes. A typical example also I have given over there. And after that, we have seen that wherever such palindromes are there, okay, and there we can say the nitrogen bases can be separated, or the restriction endonuclease enzyme can cut the DNA, not at one end of these palindromes, and we can say that that is little away. In this example, in this picture, you are observing that the cutting will take place between guanine and adenine on one strand, and on another strand, the opposite strand also, it will take place exactly at the same location between adenine and guanine. And because of that, you can notice that there is a free end over there. One free end is overhanging over there. And this overhanging end, we can say that is having nitrogen base pairs which are unpaired. And this unpaired nitrogen bases can be used for linking with any other complementary strand of DNA. And so this strand, this particular end, this overhanging area, we can say as sticky ends. And by sticky ends, you can join two different RNA or DNAs. Okay, sticky ends we have seen. And after that, we have seen that when we use this restriction enzymes, you are getting two types of products. One type of product we can say that is having sticky ends like this. Sticky ends like this. And this can be used for joining with the other DNA segments, complementary DNA sequence. But there is another product you are getting over there. Now you see over here. You see that both the DNAs are cut at the same place. So nitrogen bases are not getting unpaired. And all the nitrogen bases are getting paired. And because of that reason, we can say there is no unpaired nitrogen bases. And this end we call as blunt end. So when using the restriction endonuclease enzyme, you may get either sticky end or you may get blunt end. Okay, this is what we have seen yesterday. The yesterday section, the review part is over. I didn't ask any simple question today because I thought let everybody come one after the other, but still I get 30 number only. So it's a bad experience actually. I feel it very, very bad. The response of the students, number of students now, you just see there the participants number is just even 30. Okay, let it be. Okay, we will do one thing. Actually, I wanted to go for a poll, but my mind is saying that not to go because it's a 10 question poll. Is just like a revision, but the number of students are less. So my means I'm getting that means what I can say restriction. I mean what I can say. My mind is not allowing me to go for that poll. Okay, we'll go to the topic. I'll continue the topic. Today's session we will continue. Today's session we have to take is that is the second tool which we call as cloning vectors or vehicle DNA. Now, what do you mean by this cloning vectors or vehicle DNA? That means we can notice that we used to say that when we come across a gene that is good for a particular character, maybe in relation to disease resistance or pest control or even productivity or getting more yield or qualitative or quantitative benefit or whatever. You are getting a gene over there, and this particular gene you want to insert into a plant or an animal in which you are expecting the character to be produced. That means that particular desired gene you want to introduce into an organism. But before that, before inserting into an organism where the character you have to you are expecting, you have to do a procedure, a lot of procedure over there. This is what actually we observe over here nowadays under the tool. So now the second point here is this desired DNA segment. That is what is called the desired gene, the foreign DNA segment. And that has to be multiplied. You are getting one gene. That single gene you cannot insert into a host cell as it is. You have to make copies of it. And then you have to go for the processing. And after that, ultimately, it has to reach into the host cell. But to reach into the host cell, you need a vehicle. You need a vehicle to carry this foreign DNA segment and to get it replicated, to get it multiplied, to produce the whole, produce the clones. And such, what you can say, DNA molecule, which we are using to carry the foreign DNA segment, as well as to get it replicated into a host cell. And that DNA molecule, we can say, the vehicle DNA or the cloning vectors. That I mean, if you are getting a segment of DNA in your hand, it will not break as it is. It will not divide as it is. It has to be incorporated into a DNA molecule. And when that DNA molecule replicates, divides, the gene which you inserted, that also will divide along with that. So for that, you need a DNA molecule that we can say as vector. So what is the meaning of vector? The meaning of vector is that the DNA molecule that carry a foreign DNA segment and replicate inside the host cell. Now you can see that there are different types of vectors over here. Okay, different types of vectors are in use. Now you see that the basic vectors, we can say number one, that is one, plasmid. Plasmid is one of the vectors which we are using continuously. Now what is a plasmid? Now you see the one picture has come over there. So what is a plasmid? Now you see this is the picture, this is a bacterium. In this bacterium, you can see that it is having its own DNA. This is the normal hereditary material of this bacterium. That is called bacterial DNA. So in addition to this bacterial DNA, you can see that in bacteria, certain types of ring-like structures like this. This is also DNA. But this DNA, you can say, that is an extra chromosomal genetic material. Because this red color, what you see over there, or even in brown color, whatever color you are observing them. So this is the actual hereditary material of this bacterium. This is the DNA. The moment you remove this DNA, this bacterium cannot survive. Now you just imagine that you have a brain. The moment your brain is removed, you are dead. Okay. So same manner, This is the DNA which controls this bacterium. But you remove this DNA, then it cannot survive. So this is the genetic material. That is why it is written here. It is a bacterial DNA. But in addition to this bacterial DNA, you see something there in ring color, in blue. I'm sorry, in a ring shape blue color. That is also DNA. This also DNA. This also we can say that replicates like this one. Because wherever you observe the DNA, this DNA can divide. So this DNA, these three ring-like structures, what you see over here, remove from this bacterium, nothing will happen to this bacterium. Nothing will happen to this bacterium, even if you are removing these three. But if you are removing this, it will die. But if you are removing this, nothing will happen because it is an extra chromosomal genetic material. And such autonomously replicating circular extra chromosomal DNA of bacteria we call as plasmids. So plasmids are nothing, simple sense we can say extra chromosomal genetic material. Okay. What is plasmid then? Extra chromosomal genetic material means the presence of this plasmid or its absence will not cause any harm to the bacteria. So it is an extra chromosomal genetic material. Then other characteristics, one, it is replicating. Yeah, of course it is replicating. That means like all other DNA, this DNA can also divide. But this division is not controlled by any other DNA. Now you see this bacterial DNA is the brain of this bacterium. But this bacterial DNA has no role over the division of this DNA. That is why we say it is autonomously replicating. It's autonomously replicating. So the point you have to remember, plasmids are extra chromosomal DNA of bacteria. Second is that they are circular in nature because they are prokaryotic. So they are circular in nature. And third one is that they can replicate themselves. They can replicate themselves. And the number of plasmids that may vary. In some bacteria, you can say 1. In some bacteria, we can notice that 2. In some bacteria, we can notice that even more than that. So whatever is the number, whether it is 1 or 15 or 100 or whatever is the number, these plasmids are extra chromosomal only. Okay. So this is one type of plasmid. Okay. So that is a cloning vector. That is a vehicle DNA. Now there is another type of foreign DNA which acts as vector or which acts as vehicle DNA, that is called bacteriophage. Now you see this is the bacteriophage. Now here, look at here. This is the picture of bacteriophage. Bacteriophage, you know, this is a virus. Bacteriophage is a virus. We simply call it is as bacteria eating virus. This is known as bacteria eating virus. In this bacteria eating virus, you can see that there is a structure which is called head. And in the head, you can see the DNA is there. And this DNA, you can say the plasmid, the DNA is circular. Whereas in bacteriophage, you can see that the DNA is linear. It's a linear DNA. And so we can see that you can see a high copy number of genome can be done there in the bacterial cell. Okay. So they have very high copy numbers of their genome within the bacterial cell. Number is also say more, and we can say that they are linear and longer than these plasmids then. So these are the two basic cloning vectors or vehicle DNA by using. I repeat, one is called plasmid. Plasmids are known as extra chromosomal DNA of bacterium, and it is circular in nature and it can be replicated autonomously. And the number may vary from 1 to 2 copies per cell, or you can notice that the number may even vary up to 100. And second type is that bacteriophage, that is virus eating bacterium. And the virus eating bacterium we cannot, sorry, bacterium eating virus we can say, and that is what is called a bacteriophage. In that, there is a DNA that is linear in nature. Now, second type of plasmid is that cosmids. There is a second type of plasmid which we are using, that is called cosmids. But cosmids, we can notice that this particular term is coined by cosmids, not reported by Joshua Lederberg in the year 1952. After textbook nahi hai. Okay, so Joshua Lederberg in the year 1952 reported this. And what is cosmid? Cosmids are nothing; they are also plasmids. But what is the difference there in that? The difference is that they have the fragments of lambda phage vectors. Lambda phage vectors, or they're the DNA, we can say they're linear in nature. Okay, cosmids are plasmids only, and in plasmids we can say the fragments of DNA, if you look at, we can say that is the fragments of lambda phage vectors, or it can be linear. Then the third type of vector is that transposons. Now, what is transposons? Is very simple to understand. Very simple to understand means, now you see there is a single cell. In the single cell, whatever DNAs are there, whatever genes are there, this is collectively called as genome. Okay. Same manner, you just imagine that there is one classroom. You just imagine your classroom. In your classroom, say 50 students are there, 60 students are there. They are sitting at different locations. But their seat, where they are sitting from the first day of the year till the end of the year, sometimes we can say this seating position may be same. You are not changing yourself. Your seat is, fixed over there. That means you are sitting with your friends, so you don't want to change. But what I say, in lower classes, we can notice that the seats are very much, what you can say, fixed. That there is no change at all. Even if you go to lower classes, first standard, second standard, even LKG, UKG, like that, if you go, you can see that the teachers are arranging, seated the students in such a way that the seat is permanent. But in higher classes, you can notice that even today in your class, you can notice that today you are maybe sitting there on the first bench. Tomorrow you are sitting on the third bench, or you are sitting on the first row, and tomorrow you are there on the last row. Somewhere you are sitting. That means you have your own freedom to move from one place to another place in your class. Am I right? Are you getting me, friends? Are you getting it? I'm not asking much questions now. You're getting me? Yes. So you have the freedom. You can sit there on the first bench. You can sit on the third row. You can sit on the last row. Anywhere you can sit in your class, because you have that freedom. But can you sit someone other's class? Some other class you can go and sit. Now you see the A division students can go to B division and sit somewhere like that when the lecture is going on. No. That means between different classes, you don't have that freedom. But within your class, you have the freedom. You can move from one place to another, and you can sit anywhere. The same kind of freedom you can see there in DNA also. In a single cell, whatever genome is there, there is a certain sequences of DNA. They can move. They can change their position. So this kind of DNA sequences that can move from one place to another, or they can move from one position to another position. But one condition, within the genome of a single cell. Within the genome of a single cell. Such DNA sequences we call as transposons. So what are transposons? The sequences of DNA that can move or transpose themselves at new position within the genome of a single cell. आपका क्लास आपको ध्यान रखना है. आपका क्लास में आपको कहां किधर भी बैठने को प्रोविजन है, मतलब फ्रीडम है. You are free to move in your class from one bench to another, or you can sit with anyone. So that freedom you have. But you, at the same time, you cannot go to someone else's class and sit over there when the lecture is going on. So that freedom you don't have. So same manner, there are certain DNA sequences that can change their position within the genome of a single cell, and such genes we call as, what do you call? What do you call them? What you can call such genes? Such DNA sequences, what you can call? Chat box not responding. Transposons. That is what is called a transposon. Now you see on your screen, now three terms I specified, rest all the things have come together. Now in addition to that, there are phage mids, there are bacteriophages, there are bacterial chromosomes, there are YAC, that is yeast chromosome, there are MAC, that is called mammalian chromosome, but all these are artificial. Okay, the bacterial, the yeast and mammalian chromosomes are available, and these chromosomes, these three types of chromosomes are artificial. Mammalian artificial chromosome, yeast artificial chromosome, as well as bacterial artificial chromosome. But in addition to that, there is one more vector is mentioned over there, that is called bacteriophages. Already I told you what is bacteriophage. The most commonly used bacteriophages are, one is lambda virus, and second one is that M13. These numbers you have to remember, the name you have to remember. Okay, so we can see that even though there are different types of vectors, say plasmids are there, cosmids are there, transposons are there, phage mids are there, or bacteriophages are there, and different artificial chromosomes are there. The widely used vectors are plasmids and bacteriophages. Plasmids and bacteriophages. Bacteriophages which are commonly used, number one, M13, number two, lambda virus. I hope that you are understanding me. You are getting me clearly? Now we are going to see there in this chart, which are the most common vectors which are in use now, or which we are using now, the common vectors which we are using. So what are the common vectors we are using today? The commonly used vectors, number one, plasmids. I told you that there are two important vectors which we are using on large scale. One is called plasmid, the other one is called bacteriophage. Now you see the picture over here. See, just take the half part. Left side, what is there? Both are plasmids only. This is plasmid, this is also plasmid. Right side, whatever is there, that is called bacteriophages. Now under plasmids, two are most commonly we are using. I think in your textbook, three are given. Okay. So two are there. One is called plasmid, PBR322. PBR322 means that is the nomenclature. Like Ico R1 or HIND3, you can say that the plasmids are also having certain nomenclature, certain naming procedure. So this PBR is a naming procedure. This is a name that represents two scientists over there. Okay. So PBR322, this is most commonly used one plasmid. And similarly, there is another plasmid which we are using in large scale, that is called PUC, that is University of California. P represents plasmid. Okay. And PBR is also the name representing a P is plasmid, BR representing the name of scientist. Okay. I think Bolivar and everything you might have heard about. Okay. So these are the name of the scientists. But anyway, so these are the two main plasmids we are using. One is PBR 322, and second is that is PUC 322 and PUC. Now you see the picture over there. The PBR 322, the picture is shown over there. So this is the plasmid. Okay. And the plasmid is having certain part over there, like origin must be there. Even we can notice that the antibody, I mean, somebody can say there are certain specific areas over there. So this is mentioned over there. And there is another one called a PUC. This is PUC 19. So in PUC 19 also you can see the same characteristics over there. So certain specific areas, even we can see that the antibiotic resistant genes and everything, so on, so things for you can say that is called as marker gene or something like that. So this picture you have to keep in mind. This PBR 322 and the PUC 19. In addition to that, one T1 plasmid also I have shown over here. That is also there used. We are using it. Okay. So these are the three plasmids you have to keep in mind. The T1 plasmid that we will see separately later, and PBR 322 and PUC 90. Similarly, you can see that we are using the bacteriophages also. Two bacteriophages are on large scale that I already told you that in the previous slide. One is called lambda phage. This is lambda phage. Now you see this picture you see over here. This is the lambda phage, and that is having a tail-like structure. There is a head-like structure. Inside the head, this is what is called capsule. Inside this head, you can see that the DNA is located. This DNA is linear in nature. And another type of bacteriophage we are using, we can notice that is M13. Another one is that M13. This is M13. Okay. So remember that you are using the bacteriophage, lambda phage, and second one is that M13. Okay. Both the pictures are shown over here. I hope that you are able to see that. Okay. Now we go to the next part. The next part we can say that there. See, one plasmid is having certain features. Any plasmid you look at, the plasmid should have certain features for using as a vehicle or for using as a cloning vector. So what features they should have? The features we can say of some 3-4 features written over there. Okay. Number one, they should have an origin of replication. That means if you look at the plasmid, in the plasmid somewhere it is written that ori. Ori is written, that is the replicating part. Okay. So here the ori is written over here. This is the ori gene, and this gene must be there. That is, we can say that is the origin of replication. That must be a character of a plasmid. That should be there. Then in addition to that, you can see that selectable marker or marker gene must be there. So first of all, they should have an origin part, that is origin must be there. Second is that they should have certain marker gene. Marker gene means we can say that that particular gene is what you can say representing the antibiotic resistant area. Okay, that means that should have marker gene representing the antibiotic resistance there. And if you observe over here, now you see this is one. Okay, this is one what you can say antibiotic resistant part, and this is another one. So these two. So this is what is called a marker genes. Okay, and here we can notice that the cleavage also will take place. I mean the division will take place. So that is the second point you have to keep in mind. Antibiotic resistant genes. Okay, and here the two resistant genes you can notice that one is called AMP-R and second one is called TET-R. Okay, then in addition to that, you can see that cloning sites must be there. Actually, I don't think that these characteristics are there in your textbook, but you just see that. Okay, these are cloning sites are there. And finally, you can notice that under features, vectors for cloning genes in plants and animals. That means once you insert that in plants and animals, then it starts to multiply. So you can see that vectors for. So these are the 4 points you have to keep in mind. Now you look at here. what is the meaning of this origin of replication? So origin of replication, we can say that this is nothing else. This is the place where the replication of the plasmid takes place. But you know that the plasmids are autonomously replicating one, self-replicating one. So there is no control from anywhere. But this replication starts from this particular point. So from where the replication starts there in a plasmid, this is what is called the ori region, yeah, origin of replication. Okay. Now, if you link any foreign DNA to this origin area, so when this DNA divides, then this plasmid multiplies, replicates. The gene which you inserted, that also will divide. Okay. So the origin is having various roles there. One, this is the point from where the replication starts. Second thing is that if you link any foreign DNA or foreign gene to this area, when this plasmid is dividing, that foreign gene is also going to divide. And third point is that it controls the copy number of linked genes. That means you cannot imagine that if you insert a gene over here, you will get n number. You will not get like that. That is also linked with this origin only. That means it is controlling the copying of the linked genes. Sometimes you get many copies, sometimes you may not get many copies. Okay. So anyway, it controls the copy number of linked genes. So that is why if you want to get many copies of the foreign gene, you have to get it attached to this. Okay, whose origin support high on high. That also I told you that the origin sometimes you will get more, sometimes you will get less. You have to find out that which one is giving more gene. I mean more duplication, more replication, more clones. If you want many number of copies of genes, then you have to insert that gene with such a plasmid where the origin is supporting large number of multiplication. Or if supporting only less number, then you will get only less number. Okay. So it controls the copy number of linked genes. Now, second thing is that the marker gene, what I said in the previous slide. Now, what is this marker gene? Marker gene, we can notice that. That means when we do this kind of cloning, that means you are inserting a foreign gene. Now you see, this is the actual plasmid, and into this plasmid a foreign gene is inserted. Now you see this is a recombinant plasmid, and this recombinant plasmid you are inserting into bacterium. Some bacterium will accept it, some bacterium will reject it. So if the bacterium rejecting it, they say that is a non-transformant bacteria. That is non-transformed. If the bacterium accept, now you see this is inserted into this E. coli bacterium, and this bacterium accepted that plasmid. That means the plasmid, I mean the bacterium could change themselves by accepting this foreign gene. So this kind of bacterium or cell, we can say transformed cell. And this marker gene will help you to find out this transformed cell from the non-transformed one. Okay, you just look at the point over here. If a piece of DNA is inserted into a bacterium, that is called transformation. And such bacterium is called transformant. That means that is not original now. That is not natural now. This bacterium is got changed because of a foreign gene inserted. So it is called a transformed cell. But wherever the transformation is not taking place, wherever such DNA or plasmid is not accepted or rejected, then it is called as non-transformant. I think this point is clear to you. So marker gene is helping to find out the transformants from the non-transformants. Okay. Now the cloning site. So cloning site, we can say, we can see that in a plasmid, you want to insert a foreign gene. The alien DNA means foreign only, outsider. So if you want to insert a foreign gene on the plasmid, there should be certain recognition site, because the DNA here, the plasmid DNA is circular in nature. You want to cut the DNA and then you want to insert the foreign DNA. So cutting can be done at specific locations only. Wherever the palindromes are there, wherever the weak spot is there, there only you can cut the DNA. So you have to cut the DNA and then you have to insert the foreign gene. That means if you want to cut the DNA in the plasmid, there must be certain recognition sites. And on the recognition sites only, the restriction endonuclease enzyme will function. So the cloning site must be there in each and every plasmid. Okay, and the number of recognition sites, maybe 1, maybe 2, maybe 3, or maybe many. But remember, number of restriction sites less, that is always better than many. If many are there, it is getting complicated. If only 1 or 2, or especially 1, if only there only 1 recognition sites, that is more better for generating several fragments. Okay. So we can see that the 1 recognition site is better. If there are more than 1 recognition site, that gene cloning will be more complicated. So this is about the cloning sites. Yeah, one more point is coming over here. Now you can see that the foreign DNA carried out in the restriction site present in one of the 2 antibiotic resistant genes. I told you 2 antibiotic resistant genes are there. One is called the AMP, the other one is called the TET, TETR and the AMPA. So there at one of the site, you have to insert this foreign gene. Okay. In both the site, it cannot be. At one of the site, you can do. For an example is given over there. Now you see in PBR 322, there is a site called a tetracycline resistant gene. That is at BAM-H. This is BAM-H. BAM-H1 site. And here you can see that DNA can be inserted. Okay. So when the DNA is inserted over here, you will get a recombinant plasmid. If the recombination is not occurring over here, you can see that that is a non-recombinant plasmid. Okay. So this is the cloning site. Now another thing is that once this insertion you have done, and after that, so whenever you can see that foreign DNA is inserted within the gene, so because of the presence of a foreign gene, you can see that the particular gene, we can say, is getting inactivated. Okay, that means if foreign DNA, even if you know that in your body, if any foreign DNA or foreign particles are entered, your body will not accept it. The body will try to reject it. So when your body is trying to eject it, you see the body showing various symptoms, maybe fever or something like that. The same manner over here, when you insert a gene within the gene of a bacterium, that gene gets getting inactivated. Then it is called a insertional inactivation. And this you inserted there in the tetracycline area. So since you inserted this foreign gene in the tetracycline area, that tetracycline resistance will lose. They will lose the tetracycline resistance because of the entry of or insertion of foreign DNA. And another important point to be remembered is that when you insert a plasmid, into a bacterium, especially E. coli, it can produce 3 types of cells. It can produce 3 types of cells. Just look at them. 3 types of cells you can see over there. One is that the non-transformants. Non-transformants means that foreign gene is not accepted. And second thing is that the transformants. The transformants there we can notice that they are resisting to both tetracycline and ampicillin, but the plasmid we can say that is non-recombinant plasmid. The first thing we can notice that they are not accepting any plasmid. There is no more plasmids. That is non-transformed. Second is that second type of cell is that they are transformed, but they did not accept the recombinant DNA. They accepted only the non-recombinant plasmid. That means they can function both tetracycline and ampicillin. And there is a third type. Their complete transformation has taken place. Where the transformation has taken place, there the plasmid is there, that is recombinant vector, that is recombinant plasmid. That means that is with the foreign gene. So like that, you can see that when you insert a foreign gene into a plasmid, and then it is entered, it is inserted into a bacterium, three types of bacterium can be produced. Non-transformed are there, and transformed with the non-recombinant vector is there, and transformed with the recombinant vector is there. Okay, and such DNA or such plasmids, such bacterium, you can see that it transport into the different medium where ampicillin is there or even the tetracycline is there. So you can see that the functioning is taking place accordingly. They will find out which one is which one is having that particular recombinant DNA. Okay, that means we can notice that the tetracycline gene that is got inactivated by adding foreign DNA, and that tetracycline, what you can say, gene got inactivated, that can function there in ampicillin medium very well. Okay, but in tetracycline medium they cannot grow because that gene is not there. They're not there, but is inactivated. At the same time, the non-recombinants, if you look at, we can notice that they can survive in both the medium. So where you inserted the gene, whether in the ampicillin area, where the tetracycline area, so you have to put in a medium of opposite to one, and then you can find out whether the recombination has been taken place or not. So this way, the cloning sites are functioning. Okay, and then you can find out the transformants very easily. You can easily select the transformants. Okay, and finally, you can see that in plasmids, if you look at natural plasmids, we can notice that all these characteristics may not be there. Natural plasmids, they don't have all these natural, all these characteristics. So you have to insert certain genes which are constructed for this antibiotic resistance. So you have to construct the gene and construct the gene for this particular character like antibiotic resistance, and then you have to insert. Some examples are given in your textbook. It's not given in detail how the things are there. Even whatever I told over here, that is not given there in a textbook. So PBR 322, PBR 320, PACYC 177, all these three different types of plasmids are called constructed plasmids. And these plasmids, we can say these genes are constructed for this antibiotic resistance. And widely used the plasmid, we can say PBR 322. PBR 322 is widely used over there. Okay, so I just skip this part. You just understand that all natural plasmids, they don't have all these characteristics. So wherever these characteristics are not there, you have to construct this character by inserting the gene for that particular antibiotic resistance. And such three plasmids are given in your textbook. And out of these three plasmids, most widely used constructed plasmid is than PBR 322. Now, you can see that this is taken from your textbook. For rDNA technology, one type of plasmid we are commonly using, that is the plasmid which can replicate there in E. coli. So in Escherichia coli, which plasmid can be replicated, and that plasmid is used there in rDNA technology widely. I know that I'm not asking any question today. Your class may be boring. I know the number is decreasing one after the other. You are not. I think that you are not getting anything expected from me. So that may be reason you are running away from here. Okay, no problem. So the most commonly used plasmid is the plasmid which can replicate there in E. coli. Okay. And one more plasmid I want to tell you, and after that I will wind up this. That is plasmid vectors for plants. Now you see there is a bacterium which is called Agrobacterium tumefaciens. This is Agrobacterium tumefaciens. And this Agrobacterium tumefaciens is mostly seen there in the soil. And from the soil, this bacterium, we can notice that they can go into the plant cell. So when they insert into or they enter into any plant cell, in the plant cell, they will produce some kind of tumors like this. Now you see on the tree, you can see that some swellings you can notice there. And this is not a cancer over there, but we use the term over there. These are outgrowths or overgrowth, or it is commonly called as tumors. So these tumors are present in this plant because of the presence of this bacterium called Agrobacterium tumefaciens. Now if you look at this Agrobacterium tumefaciens, so in Agrobacterium tumefaciens, we can notice that a particular type of plasmid is there. And this plasmid, we can notice that T1 plasmid. In Agrobacterium tumefaciens, there is a plasmid. That plasmid is called as T1 plasmid, TI plasmid, that is tumor-inducing plasmid. And in this tumor-inducing plasmid, there is a particular gene that can be moved from one place or a particular sequence of DNA that is called as transposons. And that transposons we simply call tDNA. And this tDNA is having a particular character that wherever it enters, especially in plant cells, you can see that it is getting multiplied there. So the tDNA is getting multiplied when it is inserted into the plant cell chromosome. So this is the nature of the tDNA. So you have to remember, in Agrobacterium tumefaciens, there is a plasmid called tumor-inducing plasmid, which we call TI. In that TI plasmid, there is a DNA called segment called a tDNA that is called transposons. These are T1 plasmids. And when it is inserted into a plant cell, you can see that it gets multiplied there. And finally, it is producing what you can say tumors there in those plants. Now you see how it works over there. Just look at the picture. Now this is the Agrobacterium tumefaciens bacteria. From this bacterium, the plasmid is taken. This is called a TI plasmid. There is a transposon that is called tDNA. And that is removed and that is inserted into a plasmid. A recombinant T1 plasmid is formed. And that is inserted into a bacterium that is got multiplied. Okay. And then that is inserted into plant. And then that cell is extracted and cultured in a how we are doing tissue culture. The same way we are doing the culturing. And from that cultured one, you can produce an entire plant. So this plant, we can say, that is a transgenic plant, because in this plant, this foreign gene you have inserted. So whatever this tumor-inducing character you see over here, the same character you can see there in this plant also, because this plant is developed in a cultured medium by inserting this foreign DNA into this. And this plant is called as transgenic plants. Okay. So this is called Agrobacterium tumefaciens, TI plasmid, and it's also called as tDNA. So this is a transgenic plant. Now, ultimately, at the end, what you have to do there? You have to transfer, and whatever transformation you have done, finally you have to get into the the host cell. Okay. Now you see, if you want to insert this plasmid into a bacterial cell, the plant cell or whatever, wherever it is not so easy. Even the bacterial cells also, you can see that it will not accept the DNA. The foreign DNA cannot be accepted. So you have to do certain processing over there. that processing is that at 42 degrees Celsius, you have to heat it for 2 minutes after doing the calcium chloride treatment. And then the what you can say, the cell membrane will allow the plasmid to get into the bacteria, otherwise it will not get into. So you can see that, so you have to do some kind of treatment over there, and then only it can enter into the bacterial cell. But this is also not given there in your textbook, so I don't want to go deep into it since textbook contains nothing. Okay. Then and finally, we can notice that it can be inserted into the host, and there are various methods for that. You can take injection into the cell, or you can use certain gun like this. This gun is used for that is suitable for transferring the gene into the plant cells. Okay, that means cells are bombarded with the high velocity microparticles of gold or tungsten cotton with the DNA, and this is suitable for plants. Injection can be done in animal cell, and finally we can notice that it is transformed into the host cell. Okay, and this is given in your textbook. Only this one is given. That is the cloning organisms which we are using for transferring into the host. That is Bacillus haemophilus. This is Bacillus haemophilus, and this is Heliobacter pyrrole, and this is E. coli. E. coli is there widely we are using as a cloning organism. आपको बुक में एक competent host के बारे में कुछ भी नहीं दिया है. Actually, a lot of part is that to explain, but I don't want to explain because I know that you won't like it. Okay, so that is why I'm not asking anything like this. And E. coli is we are using for large scale for the transformation purpose, or for or using as a cloning organism. I know that I didn't ask any question today. The reason you won't understand, but I know the reason. That is why I don't want to disclose now. So that is why I didn't ask any question. Even the poll I have, but I didn't take the poll also. You just see the response that I don't like. That is the reason. Okay, the maximum number of students today entered into this, that is 30. Now the number is 21. So that is why I didn't ask any question. So now this particular section I have completed. Your textbook contains nothing about the topic in detail, and since your textbook is having lagging about the contents, I'm helpless. So that is why I explain a little bit more. But since it is not there in the book, I don't think that you will like it. Okay. So today we have seen this much point. Just we will review the things, what all things we have done. We have seen about the vectors. Under vectors, we have seen that vectors are nothing. They are used for transferring the gene, the foreign gene, into the host cell. That means that is a vehicle for carrying the foreign gene into the host cell. There we have seen that there are different types of vectors are there, but most widely we are using the plasmid, and second is that bacteriophage. And plasmid, two basic example I told you, that is PBR 322, other one is the PUC, and similarly bacteriophage is there. Bacteriophage is that lambda, and second is that M13. Then at some technical terms I told you what is a cosmid, and then I told you what is a plasmid. So and so things I told you today, and finally I told you that when you do the when you use the plasmid, so in all plasmids, all the features may not be there. So in such case, you have to construct those plasmid by inserting that particular gene. And some example there I have seen, and I told you 3 examples there. And out of that, the most commonly used one, that is PBR 322. And so this much you should know about the plasmid. And even when you consider a plasmid, certain features you have to consider there. The most important point is that I should have an origin, because this is the place where the replication starts. Second point, I told you that is about the marker gene. Marker gene, the first one is that the origin, that means origin. Second is the marker gene. And third one is that should have a cloning site. And finally, we have seen that the recombinant plasmids, you have to insert into a host. You have to insert into a host. And for that purpose, for transformation purpose, we can use many different types of bacteria, but E. coli is large scale, means we are using in large scale. I told you only this much. You may get it bored. I mean, it may be boring, but you see when you read your textbook, you can see nothing was there in that. Okay, so it is very simple. And tomorrow, if you like, we'll come back and we will start with the rDNA technology procedure, the methodology of rDNA technology. Okay, so tomorrow we will see. So till then, take care, enjoy yourself. Bye bye.